Welcome to the Secret Improv Podcast, where we share backstage secrets from the world of improv. I'm Kristian Ruggieri.
And I'm Goose Duarte. We are members of Secret Improv Society, a show that has been running for 18 years downtown San Francisco.
Every week, we explore a new random topic about the craft of improvisation. No script,
No limits,
no secrets.
This is the Secret Improv Podcast. What are some good improv exercises for practicing acceptance? We can explore games and drills that help performers say yes more often, build on other ideas, and stay open to whatever happens in a scene.
The first thing that comes to mind is the game, which I feel like we had done it with audience volunteers too, where people can only say one of three things. Their line can only be yes, sounds good to me, and
I'd be happy to, or something.
But there's like three affirmations.
Right.
And you do a scene with someone, and that person can only say yes, sounds good to me, and I forget what the third one is, but something similar.
Yeah, that's an obvious way to for somebody to say yes.
But what about less obvious ways?
Well, no, I don't mind the obvious ways.
Yeah.
There's a lot of beginning exercises that you play, like planning a vacation.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Part of the explanation of how to play that game is to say, well, when the person says, yeah, we're going to go to whatever, even if you don't like it, even if you hate it, you have to respond with like, that's a wonderful idea. Yes, and we will do that. Right. So that's a game designed specifically, I think, to make people, well, it also helps with creativity, but it forces people to telling them, yes, and just accept it, whatever it is.
Yeah. I have two thoughts coming to mind. One is a game sometimes that I have done with groups, which is pretty sure it's called party planning. And you get them in groups of 3, and you tell them, okay, you're going to plan a party. Okay, it's a birthday party. So pick A, B, C. Okay, person A, you're planning this party. And person B and C, everything they suggest, you have to answer no because blah, 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 whatever the reason is.
Oh, okay.
And then person A, you keep, suggest something else, and then they will answer no because this reason, no because. Okay, great. Then you switch to person.
We used to play it differently.
Okay, so this is, I don't, oh, wait, psych. I can't even recognize when it's happening. And then it's person B's turn. And they plan it. You get a new party suggest. Okay, now it's Halloween party. And the other 2 people have to answer everything starting with yes, but. Let's have it on Friday night. Yes, but Fridays people are tired from work. Okay, let's have it Saturday. Yes, but Saturdays, whatever. And that happens for a little while. Then you switch to person C. You get a new setup. And you tell the other people, you need to answer everything with yes and.
Right.
And so what you notice when you do the debrief with people, and what you can see just in the room, is when you get to the yes and part, all of the conversations start getting more animated, and people are getting louder, and people are laughing. And, when you're doing it the other way, there's a lot of people who are frustrated. How about this? No. How about this? No. People run out of ideas because everything they have is getting shot down.
Right.
When everyone's saying yes and, everybody's just building, you don't run out of ideas.
Right.
And in talking to people after, what has come up pretty commonly when I've done this is that groups say the worst experience was yes, but.
Right. Yeah.
Because at least when people said no, you knew. Let's do this.
Not only that, you tell them to say no because.
And you give them a reason.
So you're giving them a reason, right.
Which, if this was not an artificial exercise, would help them adjust and make a suggestion that maybe you could say yes to, right? If you're a salesperson, you take the because and then you come at a different angle. Yeah. But people felt like the yes but was a betrayal of how dare you, like you tell me yes and then you just tell me no. Yeah, no. That it's better, they prefer it, obviously they love it yes and the most,
right.
But but secondarily, they would rather have people say no because
Then
at
yes,
least that then just like yes, but you're
Right.
an asshole.
right.
That was one thing, and then the second thing is a game I learned from.
Wait, hold on.
Tell me.
Let me speak to that. But because I don't remember where I've learned this, but somebody told me once the word "but" basically means everything you said before now doesn't count,
Yeah,
and is the antithesis of yes and.
yeah.
So I can see how that has such a strong emotional response.
Yeah. Good point. Okay, that made me think something, but then I decided to listen to you instead of think of what I was going to say.
You were starting
so
to
I
say the
forgot.
other game.
The other game I learned from Sue Walden, which is you put people in a circle, maybe 5, and you're going to create something together. Like you're going to design a house or a car.
Right.
And the first person says, okay, this car is going to have 6 wheels. And from that point on, everyone has to start their sentence with the phrase, what I like about your idea is, which is saying yes, right? But the way she explained it to me is, and the way I would explain it when I did it with people is, you may be thinking 6 wheels on a car. That's the stupidest thing I ever heard. Now I have to buy more tires. Like it's going to look dumb. Whatever you may be thinking. What I need you to do in this moment is, what is something that you can truly, honestly get behind?
Right.
Never mind that you think the idea is 90% dumb.
Right.
What is the 10% part of you like? So maybe you say, what I like about your idea is with 6 wheels, this car will be really stable. And it was what I like about your idea is and.
Right.
And because it's so stable, let's make it 3 stories tall.
Right.
And the next person might be thinking, it's a fucking double-decker bus. I hate this so much.
Triple-decker.
Yeah, exactly. But they say, what I like about your idea is we'll be able to have a lot of people, and let's paint it blue.
It seems that short circuits some people's tendency of using yes and as a placeholder for yes but.
Right.
Because it especially when you're beginning, when you don't fully yet understand what we mean by saying yes, some people might say, "Oh, but let's put 3 decks on the car." Yes, and we should make it convertible so we can bring it back down to 1 deck.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what I like about your idea short circuits that. It bypasses that possibility because you have to say what it is that you like.
Mm-hmm.
And then the and that follows is going to be building on it because
Right.
you build your own momentum by saying it.
Right.
Right. I like that.
And inevitably, after, a few minutes, it doesn't go on too long, you ask people what their cars look like or what their houses look like.
Right.
Everything is, it flies, it goes in the water, it has a bar in the roof. Everything is outlandish. And that's great. And
Yes.
and you can talk to people about how did knowing that anything you said, anything that the person after you would support it and build on that, how did that change what you offered up as suggestions?
Right.
Because people start to feel more free and they can say their wacky ideas. In the beginning when you're brainstorming with people, no one, I mean, that's a generalization, but most people don't want to be the first one to say something crazy.
Or anything at all.
Right. And
right. They want to take the temperature of the room, see what everybody else likes,
yeah,
and then conform.
Yeah.
And avoid being that outrageous outside the box thing. That's how we end up with so much mediocrity. Every time I watch television, I imagine the people sitting around the table going like, Let's do that. Sure. And it's just more mediocrity.
Right.
Yeah.
So those are two that I think of. What about other yes and?
Well, what you just did was really go into a full breakdown and detail of what I was alluding to when I said a vacation, right? Because to get to the point where you understand how to yes and, you actually have to go through the point of experiencing the difference between no, because, yet, but, yes,
right.
and the ability, practice the ability of actually saying yes in a way that is constructive. Because it's not enough to just say yes, but you actually want to take it in. And to me, that brings us to what does yes mean, right? I'm thinking like, what is yes? What does it mean when you yes something? Yes doesn't always mean yes.
Say more.
Carol Hazenfield, who explained to me that if somebody pretends to knock at the door and you open the door and they say, "Hi, Jim, do you mind if I bring my elephant into your house?" Saying yes and doesn't mean that you have to say yes, go ahead and bring the elephant into the house. You can absolutely say, "No, I do not want that elephant in my house," which is saying yes.
Right.
To the elephant, is accepting the reality that there's an elephant.
Yes.
But specifically because it was asked in the form of a question, it's likely possible that what the other person wants is for you to say no.
Yeah.
Don't bring the elephant into the house.
Yeah.
Right. Maybe not, but either way, you're accepting, right? So yes doesn't necessarily mean you have to use the word yes. There's other ways to accept it. There's other ways to say yes. So to me, then you can. I think of the most basic improv game interaction of passing the ball. I toss the ball at you. The moment you pretend to catch the ball, that's yes.
Yeah.
That's a physical yes that you're doing with your body. If I toss the ball at you and you just look at me going, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Right.
Right. That's that's a no. That's a block. But
correct.
When I pretend to throw the ball, you pretend to catch it. That's the yes. And then you pretend to throw it to somebody else. That's the and. So to me, that basic passing the ball, and it just repeats itself in like things, big booty or like any kind of like popcorn game, like peanut butter, all of those things. Is yes and is just another version of yes and.
So, counterpoint. Is that yes and, or is that people just following the rules of a game? And is people following the rules of a game enough to be yes and?
Yeah, I think you can deconstruct it into that. Yeah, I think you can back into it. But not every game has that back and forth simple interaction. Like say if we're playing chess, yes, it's very much that, right? I move my king there. It's just a piece of wood on top of another piece of wood, but I am accepting that it is your king and that is a position. I changes the rules that way. I have to accept it before I move my pieces. So there's a yes and in that game. Is there yes and in soccer? I don't know. I don't know, right? But I think without trying to extrapolate into other games, I'm just identifying that specifically the games that we play in improv, or a good majority of the games that we play in improv, have that function of I say something, do something, and you respond in kind because of what I said. Right. And you're building upon what I'm doing. Right. And in the beginning, it's just like a ball or the word you. Then it gets more complicated, or more elaborate, like peanut butter or word at a time story, right? And then eventually becomes full sentences and it becomes scenes, right? But it's that spirit, that back and forth. I did one thing, you accept it, and then you do something else, and then I build on that. Is all the way down to just passing the ball.
Mm-hmm.
I think.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I don't disagree. I'm just, it's just at some point, which is why we always tell people improv is so powerful in life, because I think, well, if yes is accepting reality and participating, then all of life, not all of life is yes, but
you've never met anybody who denied reality.
I mean, yeah, but there's ways that people say yes. I mean, you came to my house. I opened the door and let you in. Yes. Yeah. Yes, you're here and come in. Okay.
Yeah. There are people who live in denial.
Yeah.
There are people who... it's it's hard to think of any example of somebody who would not say yes to a physical event.
Mm-hmm.
How do you deny the fact that it's raining? Like nobody goes, no, it's not raining, of course. But when it comes to ideas, proposals, suggestions, cooperation, I mean, you ever folded a blanket with somebody who folds it a different way than you?
Right.
And it's this struggle, right? I'm saying that it is applicable everywhere in life, but I don't think that people are applying it everywhere. I think that that is, to me, actually the whole point of learning to improvise. Like, why I think that improvisation goes beyond just a bunch of people making funny things happen on stage, right? Mm-hmm. It's because it has this like built-in lessons that can really make your life different. Like, you ever accepted an opportunity because your improv background has, like, let me phrase this in the form of a statement. I have accepted opportunities and I have had doors open to me because my improv training has instinctively told me to say yes to the situation, even if I didn't fully understand it, right? Yeah. I just went like, sure. And then it's like, what did I just agree to do? And then it turned out to be something fantastic. Yeah. That if I had known, I may not have done it. If I had stopped to consider it, I might have frozen and not taken action because I have social anxiety, right? And I think that applies to other people. Have you ever noticed anything like that in your life?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like we talked about this another week about just having a tendency to say yes more to opportunity, trusting the process that you'll. So who knows what will happen, but it's going to be okay.
About fears, we talked about overcoming fears by doing this, right? Before I took improv, up until the age of, was I only 20 years old when I started improvising? I was terrified of everything. And I'm not just talking about like fears, like just taking chances, being willing to do things. Yeah. And I think that a lot of people still live in a state where they're afraid of a lot of their lives, right? I can get up in the middle of a room and say, hey, excuse me, everybody, and get everybody's attention. Even in the busy room. I would do it in the middle of a restaurant, and I don't care. And I don't know many people who would do that. Right. And I think that it's this training that gives me that magic power of just, yes, I'm in the situation. Yeah. Yep, here it is. Let's do this. Yeah. Right? But anyway, I'm totally digressing here.
Yeah, I took us off the path of what are games that I don't know. I just got a little bit in my head of what's the difference between, or is there a difference between I'm following the rule of the game, or am I, maybe that's what you're doing, and what you don't realize you're building is you're, like, in a way, secretly developing.
I guess what I'm saying is that the rules of this game require you to yes hand.
Yes. Yes.
And as long as that's the case, I do think that, when you follow the rules of the game, you're yes handed. Yeah. Right.
So what are other games then? We talked about some of the explicit games where you say yes or what I like about your idea or something like that.
We talked about the really basic ones.
Mm-hmm.
But I also think about the more advanced ones that we have played, that we have done almost as during rehearsal. We spent a couple of hours giving each other really terrible suggestions. And I mean terrible in the sense of like, oh, I hope nobody ever gives me that suggestion, like Holocaust or 9/11 or abortion or things like that, right?
Yeah.
And then finding ways to create a scene or to create a situation that doesn't dive into the terribleness of the suggestion. And to me, that's a way of practicing yes and, right? Probably the most advanced way of practicing yes and.
Right.
How do you yes? What I like about your idea is
at
the level of, oh gosh, nobody should ever say that.
Right.
I was thinking just last Friday, I was in a scene with Sunana.
Okay.
And like I think we're getting to know each other quite a bit, but we've only known each other a little bit. We've only, it's been almost a year, but a few weekends on that last year. And so I don't feel like 100% comfortable to go into like sexual situations and things like that with her. I just don't think that, I don't know what her level of comfort is, and I don't want to step over that line.
Right.
But we're doing a scene where she's my psychiatrist. And I said something like, it was one of the scenes where you wave at the audience and they fill in your lines, so they're giving you suggestions throughout the scene. And I said, oh yeah, I just realized that I have, and I waved at the audience and they yell, masturbating. I'm like, that I have been masturbating. I didn't even realize that before, but I just realized that I have been masturbating. And I need you to, and I wave again at the audience.
Oh God, I'm so scared right now.
Yes, of course, that's what's happened. So the audience, someone in the audience, loud and clear for everybody to hear, said, I need release. And I had to accept that.
Right.
I can't look at the audience and go, sir, you're perverted and disgusting. Please leave our theater, and everybody else continue having fun. Like, I can't do that, right? So I have to accept it, but I have to make it right. So I said, I need release from the grip that my obsession has on me, right? But for the 1 second, I was freaking out. Like, what do I do with this, right? And then you have to find a way. That's what that exercise is. You have to find a way to not have it mean that. Like one time in Conducted Experts, and I know we talk about menstruation without reservations all the time, but one time somebody said, I said, what am I an expert about? And they said periods. And I said, okay, great, periods. And so I talked about grammar. Yeah. And like the difference between colons and semicolons and periods, right? Yeah. There's ways to do that, and to me, that's still yes-anding, and that's still practically applicable outside of improv. Yes. When you're having conversations with somebody, they say something you don't like. How do you accept what they are saying without taking it in, without taking it on, right? And I think that's a key part of persuasion. Say that I want to convince you of my point of view. You have your point of view, I have my point of view. For me to help you see my point of view, I have to understand what your point of view is first. Yeah. Right. It's like it's as if we're standing in two different points on looking at an object. And instead of me saying, hey, come over here, look at the object from my side so that you can see what it looks like, I have to first come over to where you are, see the object from your perspective, and then say, okay, great, now let me show you my side. And then you're going to be far more amicable, more malleable to actually seeing my side. And that's where this element of yes anding at a higher level. Somebody said something that you completely disagree. Like, hey, I think Trump is great for America. Right? Okay, I just alienated half of the country. Uh, um, and I disagree with that. Somebody says it, I disagree with that. What is it? How can I find common ground? How can I understand what it is that they want? What is the driving needs and desires that they have that makes them say so, so that we, from in that common ground, I'm able to show them my side of the story. Um, and it starts with the yes. It starts with practicing. Yes, I see your point. I understand what you're saying. You're saying this and this and this and that. Right.
Stupid asshole. Yeah.
Other games.
Games. Like you brought up word at a time story is a great one.
Right.
And that's one where you see, much like the artificial exercise of no, because, yes, but, yes, and, in a word at a time story, I think it becomes obvious, or you can help people see the difference between accepting the word that came before yours and trying to build on it and support the story, and
Right.
trying to mess it up or throw in your own thing that you wanted to say. We see that a lot when we do the three-headed expert
Yes.
game
Yes.
in the shows.
Yes, because it's also word at a time.
It's a word at a time, and we get a volunteer in the middle, and it works best when the volunteer is listening and says whatever word, like they can say any word.
Right.
But sometimes there definitely are words that are going to make more sense grammatically,
Correct.
are going to make more sense thematically.
Yeah.
And when that happens, it's so smooth and it's so fun to watch. Right. And then when people are in the middle and they say random words or they say something trying to be funny, it's, right. I mean, I think the audience still enjoys watching it to see someone on stage and us having to deal with that.
Yeah, sure.
But I think it's so much rougher as a story, and
right. It's not the magic of improv.
Right.
Right. When everybody's simply saying the next word, then it's like magic. Things happen that none of the three people expected or necessarily was trying to, but it happens and it makes sense and it's great. And yeah, when it doesn't happen, the audience also enjoys it, but that magic is stolen when they're not saying the right word. But
yeah.
What about that? Like, I'm not challenging what you're saying.
Sure.
I just want to understand it. I want you to expand on it. Like, what about just saying the next word is yes and?
Okay, good question. Well, on a very basic level, you are acknowledging that you heard the word that came before you. And I think you are acknowledging, like, if the story's going along and the person was named Steve at some point that you're talking about, and it, like, if it comes to the point where the person's it's clear that the name of the person is the next word that needs to happen, and you say, I've lost myself. Yeah. I've lost myself in this explanation.
It sounds like you're saying that the yes is the accepting of what has been said before.
Yes.
As being a structural part of the sentence.
Yes.
And the reality, if they said Steve,
then
when you
his
say
name is Steve. Yeah.
You're yes ending.
Right.
So does that point to listening as a way of saying yes?
I mean, That's a great point. I think you have to be listening to say yes. Otherwise, what are you saying yes to?
So it's a prerequisite? Or is it the complete thing? I mean, is the listening itself enough of a yes? Say, for example, we were in a scene. You have some kind of epiphany, and your character makes some revelation about themselves.
Yeah.
And the other person is just sitting there quietly, intently looking at you.
Yeah.
And when you finish, they just hug you.
Yeah.
There's no words.
Right.
But they were listening, right?
Right.
So does listening then is that an instance, an illustration of how listening can itself be yes?
Yes. I would say that in that example for sure. Because the person was accepting that the listener, right, in your setup, the listener was accepting the fact that the speaker was having a moment.
Right.
They were having the epiphany they needed to share. They were having their monologue moment. And by listening, they were also accepting it. That's a little bit give and take, right? They were accepting that the person speaking, this scene is about them.
Right.
And the best way you can support that is by being quiet and letting them talk.
Right.
And then the listening was the yes and the hug was the and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Because without the listening, you don't know what responses require.
Right.
Right. So it's like two sides of the same coin. It's almost like listening is not just a requirement for yes and, but it's a big of yes specifically. It's a big part of it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, listening is a big part of it. And I think that listening is fundamental to all of it. It's a part of the yes. It's also a part of, you have to listen to accept the reality. You have to listen to know what the person is saying. You have to listen to be able to participate and engage. Like, there is no improv without listening.
No good improv.
Good point. True.
You do this long enough.
Yeah.
Yes, there is no improv without listening, and there is no improv without yes and.
Right.
So the question that's coming into my head in the conversation is, are they separate things? Or are they different expressions of the same thing? It's listening, another way of saying yes. Can I fully really listen?
I don't think you can separate them.
Well, let me see. Can I listen and also say no? Can I listen to everything that you're saying in your thing and then also decide to block your offer?
You can,
Make you crazy, right? Say a random word in the middle of a
Sure. You can do
all
all those
I
things.
can do all those things and still listen.
Right.
So listening is not itself completely the yes, but it is necessary. It is a part of it. Like if it was a Venn diagram,
oh God,
you would have the listening be entirely within the circle of yes.
Okay, I can't do your Venn diagram right now, but I can tell you this. You can listen and say no, but you can't say yes and not listen.
Right. Okay. So
make that a Venn diagram.
So that the yes is a circle entirely inside of listening.
Yes.
Because you can't yes without listening.
Correct.
Right.
And you can know without listening because you just say your own thing. Right. It doesn't matter if you heard what came, and you can listen and say no.
Right.
So,
well, since we're getting so analytical,
yeah.
then listening may not be necessarily the entirety of the thing, because it's more than just hearing what the other person's saying, right? Also, is what they're doing,
Right.
right? There's the physical actions,
Right.
a look, a sneer, a walk.
Yeah.
All of those things can be sending lots of messages.
Yeah. So it's the being present. Well, but you have to be present and be listening and watching and
Right. Yeah. There's when someone's showing you something, you look at it. When someone's saying something, you listen.
mm-hmm.
But is there a word, an equivalent to when someone's communicating? Because this is what we're talking about is
Right.
the reception of communication, whether it's visual or auditory. You're whatever that is, you're doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you can yes.
Right.
And then you can build on that.
Right.
So the foundation, really, if we're talking about building on, the foundation is being present,
Mm-hmm.
then listening, observing,
Accepting. Yeah.
Accepting is yes.
Mm-hmm.
Accepting the reality of it, and then building it is and.
Yeah.
So and is the little thing that you put on top of the tower of the other
Right.
practices.
And that you do to be a good improviser.
Right.
Because you can be present and listen and observe and accept. But if you don't build, if you don't add anything, you're putting all that responsibility on the other person in the scene to advance the story.
Right. Right. That's why in beginning improv they say no questions.
Yeah.
Not because questions are bad, it's because we habitually just simply turn around and say, well, you build it.
Yeah. Yeah. We solved it.
Yes. The practice of saying yes. Before we call it off.
Yeah.
Any games, I know you just mentioned the conducted expert, but now I'm looking for games, particularly performance games, that showcase it more so than require it. Like, what's something where you obviously every scene we do it's built on this thing, right? But is there anything that brings attention to the yes Andy part of it?
Well, in a way, New Choice does, because when you're in the scene and the bell dings because it's time for you to make a new choice, you do. Right? You don't say, no, this is a bad time for me. I can't come up with another name for this character. Or, no, I don't like, you're going to change the direction of the story and it's in a good place. Like, every time someone gets dinged in New Choice, they come up with a new choice.
Yeah.
So, and they may be saying things, yes, ding, no, ding, maybe, ding. So it's not that the words they're saying are yes, and it may take them from they had been accepting and agreeing with the person in the scene, but then they get dinged to where now they disagree with the person in the scene. But even if that's the outcome, I think just the fact that when the bell rings, you make a new choice, you're saying yes. I don't know if the audience recognizes that.
Yeah, no, I don't think the audience is sitting there going, "Oh, they're doing a yes and game," right? But I just want to know if we know that that's something that showcases it. Yeah. And as you mentioned that, I think that this is something I don't know that I've ever told anybody, but I love doing. When we're playing New Choice, say you're getting the bell. Yeah. You and I are in a scene, and you keep getting the bell. Every time you say something else, I make it my job to have a different reaction based on the different choice that you make. Yeah. So I am practicing fire rapid yes ending as well as you are, because when you say oh, I love you, I'm like, oh, great, or like hate you, and I get sad, right?
Yeah.
And yeah. It also makes me think that most justification games actually do showcase yes and, right? Like the cell phone, when we ask the audience to fill in the lines, lines
Yeah.
of dialogue, anything where we're giving some random left turn twist out of nowhere, and we have to. Probably the biggest one then would be bullshit.
Right.
Right? Because you're so.
Which is, yeah.
And the audience is fire rapid random bullshit, and you have to justify it.
Yeah.
You have to yes and.
Yeah. Yeah. It's essentially a solo new choice scene.
Yes.
That the audience gets to call. So. Right. Yeah.
So the guy in the bell may not necessarily be on your side. Or the guy on the bell may not be on your side. Because it's the audience.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that does seem that might be the epitome of somebody who has practiced their yes and.
Mm-hmm.
They're creating up a story. They're making something up, and they're having to justify whatever changes the audience gives them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a good example of it for sure.
Okay, did we solve it? Is it done?
We did it. We solved
Yay.
it. Bing bong.
Okay, yes, and it's done. No more. That's the end of the series, guys.
We solved it all.
We solved it all.
That's it this week on the Secret Improv Podcast.
If you like what you heard, subscribe and share this with your friends and lovers.
We'll be back next week with another random topic and more unscripted wisdom. This was actually kind of fun. This was actually kind of fun. This was actually kind of fun. This was actually kind of fun.